Hola, ¿qué tal? Yo soy la profesora Zapata. Welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we are going to talk about los números, the numbers. Let's get started. In Spanish, just like in English, we have two forms of using numbers. The first one we call números cardinales. Se usan para contar. You use them to count. You can use them to tell how many, to say our phone number, to talk about specific year or age. And then número dos is what we call números ordinales. Se usan para una secuencia, for a sequence. To give a date, to put things in sequence, to mention the floor of a building, to talk about celebrations. Let's start with los números cardinales. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Now let's put together 21 through 29. Recall that 20 is 20. When we start putting together 21 through 29, what we do is we simply say 20 and 1, 20 and 2. Instead of doing that long way, we are going to get rid of the Y. We are going to get rid of the E on the 20, and we're going to change that to an I and then add that second number. So it's going to look like 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29. So now that you have an idea of how we put our numbers together, I'm just going to give you 30, 40, 50, so on and so forth. And remember, the Y, it's sort of what puts together the end of the actual number. You'll start getting the hang of it. So 30 will be 30. So if I want to say 35, I'm going to say 31. I'm not going to do the same thing I did for the 20s. This time around, for the rest of the numbers, I'm going to need that Y. So what we just saw with the 20 doesn't carry on to the rest of the numbers. Remember that. 40, 50, that's 50. 60, 70. So notice that the difference between 60 and 70, it's only the third letter. The S of the 60 changes to a T in the 70. I'm going to say it again. 60, 70, 80, 90, 100. That would be 100. And we take the same idea as before. If we're going to say 101, I'm going to say 101. And then if you want to say 125, I'm going to say 125. Remember, in the 20s, we shortened the numbers, right? And then 148, 148. I'm going to tell you the difference between 100 and ciento in just a second. 183, 183. Okay, let's remember that 100 was 100. Now, when we go to the 200s and above, we're going to do sort of a combination of the first number that you learn, like 2, and then the hundreds. So we're going to say 200. cientos with an S for 200. It's like you're putting together two different numbers. 200, 300, 400. So if we split that apart, the cuatro is the 4 that you learn. And then ciento is that 100 that you learned before. Now we're putting it with an S. We put that together. 400 is 400. 500, 600, 700, 800, 900. That's 900. Once we get into 1,000, that changes to mil. Mil. And then if we want to do 10,000, 10,000. 100,000 would be 100,000. And then a million would be un millón. Okay, so you heard me say 100 for 100, and then you heard me say 101, 102, so on and so forth. 130. So let's talk about the difference between 100 versus ciento. We're going to use 100 when you're referring to an exact number. The gender does not matter. For example, the R100. I 100. You can also use it when you're using the number 100 with a noun, which is why I mentioned gender does not matter. For example, I counted 100 cups. Yo conté 100 vasos. Vasos actually is masculine, and in this case is plural. So I don't need to change 100 to match the gender. I'm going to say 100 regardless. Just like the other example where it says there are 100 women. Hay 100 mujeres. So 100 stays the same no matter the gender of that noun you're using. Now we use ciento when we are using compound numbers or numbers that are made up of 100 and other numbers, which is why a few seconds ago you heard me say 100, but then when I said 101, I changed that to 101. So examples are the following: 101, 101. 165, 165. And then the last example, we have 189, 189. Something to keep in mind is that the Y separation goes in the tenths, not to the hundreds. Now, what about when we have large numbers? Números largos. We separate them generally into 3 groups. The first group here will be the 9 million. So I'm going to write 9 and then million. Million here, because 9 is plural, I'm going to write it with an ES instead of how I wrote 1 million. 1 million, to recall, I said un millón. There was no ES there. Here you see the ES because it's making a plural. 9 millones. 9 millones. The second group is 387,000. 387,000. And the last group is 357. So how we would read that big number, it would be 9,387,357. Okay, our last part of the video. Let's take a look at los números ordinales. First, second, third, so on and so forth. En español, primero. That means first. Segundo, tercero, cuarto, quinto, sexto, séptimo, octavo, noveno, décimo. Ejemplo, if you want to say, my apartment is on the 7th floor, do not say, mi apartamento está en el 7 piso. That would be incorrect. You want to use séptimo instead. Mi apartamento está en el 7º piso. Okay, here are some others like décimo primero o décimo segundo. You can read the rest of them on your own and it would be really good for you to practice pronunciation. We have arrived at the last part of our video. Preguntas con números. I'm only giving you 2 of them. If you want to ask someone, what is your phone number? You can say, ¿cuál es tu número telefónico? The person could answer with, mi número telefónico es 932-123-5892. And if you want to ask someone, on what floor is the office? ¿En qué piso está la oficina? You can answer with, la oficina está en el 5º piso. That means the 5th floor. Great. Thank you for sticking around. Ciao, ciao. If you have any questions or any suggestions, make sure you email me at laprofesorazapata@gmail.com. I will see you soon. Nos vemos pronto.